Only 9 years old, I dedicate my life to helping people when I am not in school. For months now, I've been protecting my town from crime. But now, something has happened which even I cannot fight alone. The BP oil company has drilled and caused a spill in the Gulf like no other. The president of BP apologized.
We're sorry.
But they drilled again and tore open a portal into another dimension.
We're sorry.
Creatures from that dimension are now wreaking havoc in the Gulf. BP tried to solve the problem by drilling on the moon, but instead they caused the Dark Lord Cthulhu to emerge.
Sorry.
I have joined forces with other superheroes in my neighborhood to help save the Gulf. But even the other heroes do not know that unlike them, I do have a power. A power they will now begin to understand. And all will know who and what I truly am.
Cthulhu, 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 Cthulhu. Yeah! The evil, hate-filled Cthulhu from a dimension far away, flying through gates of madness and into your heart. Yeah! Oh yeah! Turning dreams into nightmares, destroying all he sees. Now begins a new adventure for me. You and the Dark One Cthulhu, sharing adventures and smiles. It's a magical bond two pals can share. Soon the whole world will be made aware of you and the Death Lord Cthulhu, making the world a better place. Together you will have so much fun, sending all my stupid friends to oblivion. You and the Dark One Cthulhu.
Alright, so there's a lot I want to say for this post, since there's not much written here. And it's a quote from The Wisdom of Silba in Outer Gateways, Kenneth Grant's 7th book from 1994. This post is called The Spiral Call, and it's post 22, which, again, I didn't think of the numbers of these posts when I posted them, but looking back, it's hard not to think of a lot of connections, just coincidental connections, I guess, because even even the reading of these posts, like yesterday, I didn't mean to. I wasn't even thinking about it, but it was until I was, thinking about it after, during the fact, basically, that it was August 8th, and the whole post was called The Color of Time, and I mentioned 8 times 8 and how 64 is time, and I was just like, holy fuck, it was just a little overlap, which happens. I mean, I see these things all the time. It's just some of those things let you know you're like, you're on the path, you're on the right track or whatever. And timing, space and time overlay like that. But yeah, this is the Spiral Call, and it says, black are the voids of Avith, wherein the spiral call from the egg echoes and secretes a meticulous globule. And so I had that Cthulhu thing, which this song, even on this video, I had thought I had heard it say Cthulhu. It says Cthulhu, 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 Cthulhu. And I had actually asked a friend, I was like, did you hear that too, Cthulhu? And it sounds pretty obvious. So you can hear the second Cthulhu, and the first is like a T. Well, and the thing about this whole thing, the reason I pointed out is not just because of that, but it actually, in 2011, when I was reading that book and I was starting to get into Kenneth Grant, that's when that episode of South Park came on, and I was like, wow. At the time, I didn't even really think about it fully, but now looking back, I think it's kind of funny. So yeah, I'm gonna really quickly go through Outer Gateways. Not the whole thing, just mention what the Wisdom of Silba really is. And again, I have this book. I know I'm just using a PDF that you can, there's tons of them on the internet, but this is for research purposes, and because Kenneth Grant goes over so many different things, the main point is that he ties in, this is the book he ties, I think, in most, the whole UFO, what he calls ufologics or ufologics. I mean, he does throughout, especially outside the circles of time and beyond the Mob Zone, but this one too. And anyway, the Primal Grimoire, I mentioned that. Cthulhu, I haven't, and it comes, like, I'll go through the Primal Grimoire real quick, but my observation of the universe convinces me that there are beings of intelligence and power of a far higher quality than anything we can conceive of as human. That they are not necessarily based on the cerebral and nervous structures that we know, and that the one and only chance for mankind to advance as a whole is for individuals to make contact with such beings. Aleister Crowley, and I believe that's in Magic Without Tears. I don't remember the chapter. But Chapter 1, The Primal Grimoire, a number of arcane texts claiming non-terrestrial provenance are of supreme significance in the sphere of creative occultism. Perhaps the most mysterious and certainly the most sinister is the Necronomicon, the first mention of which appears in the fiction of the New England writer H.P. Lovecraft. Said to have been written by a mad Arab named Alhazred, the Necronomicon actually exists on a plane accessible to those who, either consciously like Crowley or unconsciously like Lovecraft, have succeeded in penetrating it. There are vague hints in the books of the book's existence in the arcane literature of East and West. That is to say, there have been oblique and guarded references to a grimoire containing instruction for establishing rapport with the denizens of other worlds, other dimensions, other spaces, with their conjuries of bubbling globes and demonic luminaries beyond the stars. Dr. John Dee, the 16th century magician, trafficked with alien entities and left a record of his transactions in the historic Liber-Logaeth. Other occultists have left accounts of similar transactions, but it was H.P. Lovecraft, 1890 through 1937, who crystallized in a single concept the strands of weirdness and wonder, horror and terror that went into the making of these and yet more ancient records. He created an archetypal anomaly, the Necronomicon. The title means the Book of Dead Names, or Names of the Dead. Dead, that is, to earth life, but who exist in dimensions inaccessible to average mortals. So I should mention, where was that? Way up here, creative occultism. Of the more celebrated ancient and modern, we may cite the stanzas of Zion, the Enochian material received by D. and Kelly, Owaspe, in the Book of the Law, Liber AL, transmitted to Aleister Crowley and others to be mentioned in due course. Immaterial as the book is, it has led inevitably to far-reaching controversy, and is no exaggeration to say that many of today's creative occultists have been influenced not by the presence of the book, but by its absence. It is in fact the concept of magical absence that has proved to be the matrix, the mother void, of those mysterious contacts with alien entities that are today placed within the category of ufology, the lore of unidentified flying or floating objects. The label is useful for two main reasons. It affirms the anonymity of the entities in question. It further affirms their association with the elements of air and of water, which are the phenomenal symbols of space, or in metaphysical terms with the void, typified by the concept of outer space. What is particularly significant is that Lovecraft first mentioned the Great Old Ones, the chief protagonists of the Necronomicon, in the Call of Cthulhu, a tale which initiated the Cthulhu myth cycle. This tale was written in 1926, the year in which Frater Achad vibrated the magical word, Allah, which adds up to 93. So, I keep skipping over these, but whether flying or floating, space is implied because the element water was anciently identified with space, the waters of space, as witnessed by expressions such as the ocean of space. In Charles Stansfeld Jones, 1886 to 1950, Aleister Crowley recognized him as the magical child referred to in Library L. See my Typhonian trilogies for numerous references to Jones. And see Outside the Circles of Time, Alala means God, all, is not, law, not law. So God is, or implies it's a positive expression basically through the formula of Alala basically. And Alala is also this war cry, this Greek war cry. And it's like Alala. And again, yeah, it's like Allah, but God basically, but it's that breathing in and breathing out, which Friedrich Schad realized if you read Liber 31, that it's the silent word of God that as long as you're alive, you're speaking basically. Cthulhu, 93, and 93 is a lot of things. You can think of it as, because again, the seed with Samek is 93. And then Silba, again, is also either 93 or 333. And again, we're going to get into the wisdom of Silba. But 93 is also that, it's like 3 is like a broken open egg. And again, it's 0 equals 2, but really the 2 is balanced in the 3. So, and then that 9 is like the bud, basically, the bud will coming out of the seed. But then also 93, since it's that lost word, so to speak, again, the phallus, the lost phallus, the lost word being the will. Think of the triangle. It's basically, and then the 9 arches with the triangle underneath, with the word of God is what I'm trying to say. And it's hard to verbalize all this stuff. It's just in my mind. But yeah, the 9 arches, again, the 9th arch, and then the triangle, the golden triangle, basically, that the Tetragrammaton is supposed to be kept on in the whole Masonic legend, basically. But it's symbolic. It's also the triangle and the 90-degree angle to the 3 dimensions, so it's like that 4th dimension again. Cthulhu is described by Lovecraft as an octopoidal abnormality abiding in the deep, waiting to surface and possess the earth, which is a way of describing a lurker in outer space wanting to invade the terrestrial sphere. This is a macrocosmic interpretation. From a microcosmic standpoint, Cthulhu lies dreaming in the ocean, the subconsciousness, awaiting certain astrological configurations that will both announce and facilitate its manifestation on Earth, projected via the minds of its chosen votaries. These are necessarily few and secret. A description in Library L of the votaries of the goddess Nuit, who represents infinite or outer space. The name Cthulhu, although assumed to be an imaginative appellation created by Lovecraft, bears very close resemblance to Tulu, a word Toodaloo, a word that appeared in Crowley's Liber 418, or The Vision and the Voice. What does it say? Chapter 2. Yeah, it's, I believe, the Ether Zaw. We'll get into the next chapter, but because these chapters are short, they're only a few pages, the first 2, which antedated Lovecraft's tale by nearly 2 decades. Here again appears a connection with extraterrestrial entities, for Liber 418 is the book of the airs or zones beyond Earth. Again, or it's like the airs are really kind of like concentric rings, like an onion within, more so than just without, but this whole within, without, above, below thing is topsy-turvy everywhere, every which way. But Iwas, whose other number is 93, is the old one responsible for transmitting to Crowley in Cairo in 1904 the Book of the Law. So yeah, this is just a refresher basically for those who either, it's even for me, I haven't read this book or these chapters in a while. And the whole South Park thing, that was just a refresher on that, because I actually had forgotten about it, but then it popped up in my mind. And again, with the Cthulhu and the 8 and the all of this, it ties together. But so ufology has now infiltrated the contemporary occult scene, and the new lore has lent to orders such as the OTO, New Isis Lodge, and Zoskia Cultus orientations other than those which characterized them in the days of Blavatsky, Crowley, Speyer, and others. In the present book, these orientations will be examined in relation to areas of magical consciousness hitherto unexplored. We shall in fact approach the gateways between which and humanity there exists a solution of continuity that may be transcended only by the magic of the Mauve Zone. This highly specialized form of occultism, first introduced in Hecate's Fountain, 1992, is related to a formula of dream control evolved by the present writer the years 1955 through 1962, when New Isis Lodge was founded, for purposes of traffic with the Outer Ones. The efficacy of the formula will be demonstrated in the present volume, which resumes the results of numerous magical workings in occult experiments. A major facet of the formula is the role of animal symbolism, which is herein shown to illuminate a gnosis more ancient even than that of the beast-masked deities of Egypt, which veiled the mysteries of magical miscegenation. This gnosis, like its later Hebrew reflections, features the zootypes of a force not only pre-human, but altogether alien to the human life cycle. The bestial symbolism masks in its primordial form the mystery of intercourse between non-humans and humanity. Ancient lore is replete with references to the subject. He's referencing A.E. Waite's The Holy Kabbalah? Huh. Well, yeah, I mean, Lilith and the incubi, the succubi. That's the thing. All of the Kabbalah seems to be, again, not just overlayable with quantum mechanics and stuff, but like Zionism is pretty much transhumanism. And because, the Tikkun Olam is 666, the transhuman movement 666, and it's like the reparation of the fall. So, but I think they have this. I think the transhumanists and the Zionists are kind of, I don't know. Everyone's just got their like weird little thing, and I know that me being associated with all this stuff puts me in a little box too. But that's why I have more interests in books and stuff than just the occult. The occult is just one big blind spot that has to be looked at. More germane to our immediate concern, however, is a story by Lovecraft written for the celebrated illusionist Houdini. What was that called? Yeah, Imprisoned with the Pharaohs, which expresses the undercurrents of a situation not quite so simple as that which Waite and others have supposed. The fact appears to have been overlooked by contemporary researchers that Waite, of all authorities the most unlikely, that's why I was like, what? Is virtually alone in alluding more than fleetingly to mysteries which are now puzzling empirical scientists and occultists alike. Arthur Machen, also, who had more than an inkling of these matters, he was an intimate friend of Waite, and so did Austin Osman Spare. There is evidence that Spare's line of initiation can be traced through the New England witch covens. Oh, and he puts 13. It was therefore identical with the most ancient currents represented today by, among other arcane streams, the Lodge of the Black Eagle, which uses formulae comparable with those of New Isis Lodge. The latter received via OTO and Zosky occultists the individual charismata of both. The keys to the outer gateways, the modes of unsealing cells of Set, or the tunnels of Cthulhu, repose in the sovereign sanctuary of the OTO. So basically what he's saying is that they, just like the OTO says, that they're basically the possessors of the secrets of the Illuminati, although that doesn't mean that, you have to be an OTO member to, fucking find out any of this stuff. Because again, they don't like Kenneth Grant. When I went to the OTO chapter or whatever, Oasis, he was pretty much basing a lot of his criticism of Grant off of, admittedly, well, one of the guys there is just like wasn't aware much of Grant just from what he had heard, and so to me it just shows like again, but the OTO, the symbolism right there, like AN Tau, AN 130 plus 406 plus 130, 666, and again the secret of the OTO, in De Arte Magica, again the extrapolation of knowledge, basically. Their use varying according to the levels of consciousness involved. The only way of acquiring these keys is, in a sense, by becoming them. This is to say, their acquisition depends upon the ability of the initiate to mold his astral consciousness in forms, frequently zootypical, of the magical zone he intends to penetrate. Zoss, Austin Spare, used mainly feline forms. Crowley, on the other hand, often utilized bird shapes such as the hawk and the ibis. The distinction is significant. The temples of the Egyptian cat goddess Bast, were dedicated to the moon and to the Meon, the stars, or again also the Meon is really the void, I believe, or the active or dynamic aspect of the void in its like goddess sense or whatever. The temples of the Horus hawk or falcon to the sun, those of the ibis-headed Thoth to Mercury. The magical formulae corresponding to these levels are, respectively, of the 8th, the 9th, and of the 8th negative, the 9th positive, and the 8th positive, which I guess is Night Side of Eden, pages 204, 206. But this analysis reveals but a single interpretation of such formulae. The solar attribution via Horus might, for example, with equal validity be referred to Mars, thereby changing to 11th degree negative the formula of Horus. A way of understanding the use of these keys is by examining their application to the mysteries of the Book of the Law, the Necronomicon myth cycle, and Zospia cultus. It is my intention, therefore, to treat of these aspects before exploring other relevant matters. And then Cthulhu, chapter 2. The word Cthulhu was heard by Crowley during an initiation into the ether of Za. The Vision and the Voice, Liber 418. The invocations of the outer spaces that form the basis of this singular grimoire were written down by Dr. Dee more than 3 centuries ago, which he underwent in Algiers on November 24, 1909. Its appearance in his vision of the 27th ether suggests a perichoresis, or interpenetration, with the Necronomicon current. It is probable that the word transcribed by H.P. Lovecraft as Cthulhu is a variant form or corruption of Cthulhu, or vice versa, in much the same way that Kuranzan is a variant of Chozar and Kuranzane. Crowley stated in Liber 418 that Cthulhu could not be translated. The reason for this statement is not clear because in the second ether the word is translated without comment. The number of Cthulhu, which is 66, or a number really, is a number of the great work, because Cthulhu it can be Teth or Tau. And of Nu and Had conjoined, 56 plus 10. Had being identical with the god Set is the throne or seat of Isis, whose name means precisely that. Nu Had is therefore a form of Nu Isis, and so also is Cthulhu. 66 is the mystical number of the Qliphoth, the world of shells, which suggests the abode of the deep ones, of which Cthulhu or Cthulhu is supreme. 66 is also the number of the angel At-Tom, who revealed to Mani the gnosis of the double current. Also, and by a certain system of gematria, 66 is the number of Iwaz. He's indebted to Mr. André Cote for this equation. It should be noted that the litany contained in Liber 418, which includes the untranslatable word Cthulhu, is related to a formula of Gomorrah, 11th degree, which indicates the backward way and the path associated with the Tuat, the subconsciousness. Tuatulu, this word is 67, the number of Zin, the Atlantean form of Sin, the moon, the lunar current. Why did Crowley declare Cthulhu to be an untranslatable word? In the second ether, there appear the letters Tu, Fu, Tu, Lu, which he translates as who will shall attain. If this was an accurate translation, Cthulhu would then read who shall attain. This may be interpreted as confirmation of the promise of Cthulhu's long-awaited resumption of the throne of the deep ones, i.e. the seat of Nu Isis. The inclusion in Cthulhu of Fu, meaning will, may have decided Crowley against translating Cthulhu because such a rendering could imply the use of the 93 current by the Deep Ones in their bid for terrestrial supremacy. In Cults of the Shadow, I examined the point made by Frater Achad to the effect that Crowley had failed to utter a word, the word of the Aeon. It is the function of a magus to utter a word or formula which contains the vibrations potent to awaken the forces of the Aeon which the magus represents. And the whole thing being Crowley, the whole thing Kenneth Grant's referring to is that in Cults of the Shadow, he says that Frater Achad surmised that Crowley, identifying with the beast, was speechless or wasn't able to utter a word, and that's why he tried to fulfill that role with Alala and Alalia, which are 90, like he said, 93, or with a Yod, awakened, is 103, which is Achad with the egg. It may be suggested tentatively that the word Cthulhu, which Crowley received in 1909 in connection with the 27th Ether, is the word of the Aeon of Horus, or Set. It should be understood that Horus and Set are interdependent counterparts. They cannot exist apart. This double current appears in the Necronomicon as Cthulhu and Yog-Sothoth. A full analysis of the word will appear in due course. Here I merely draw attention to the fact that Lovecraft made Cthulhu the star of his mythos. The concept should therefore be examined somewhat closely. The depth, Cthulhu, is reflected in the height, Yog-Sothoth, as Set is the shadow of Horus. Note that Chai Yoga, the Yoga of the Shadow, has the value of 93. And he talks about Chozar and the pig being a zootype of Set. Well, pig, Pei, Yod, Gimel is 80 plus 10 plus 3, so that's 93. There's a lot of 93s I've found too, and again, Hebrew applied to English, but the point is significant, for Lovecraft defines Yog-Sothoth as one in all in one, which happens to have been the motto chosen by Frater Achad when he assumed the grade of 8-3, Master of the Temple, in the Order of the Silver Star. The Silver Star, or Argentium Astrum, or Astron, Argon, or whatever, it's AA, is the name of the Great White Lodge. It consists of 11 grades, each denoted by an equation, the factors of which add up to 11. The number of the Qliphoth, or outer ones, see glossary Qliphoth, or just again the AA, it's like the Magus, again being 2, but also 1. It's the 1 in the shadow, which again is kind of the formula of Mayan. But had Achad been aware of Lovecraft's work, he would not have failed to comment on the fact that his motto appeared later in Lovecraft's work in connection with the counterpart of Cthulhu. And again, I've mentioned this, and it took me a while to realize. I'm not a big fiction reader, but I went and read The Call of Cthulhu, and apparently April 2nd is the day R'lyeh sinks. So, and April 2nd is again the day that Frater Achad was born, and then on his birthday, he discovered the whole Ion thing. And then on April 2nd of the 107th year of the Aeon of Horus, 2011, I happened to, again, buy an obsidian egg. And right in the week, I had gotten Outside the Circles of Time, and then I was reading Outside the Circles of Time, and in the chapter on, Initiations of Aosic, chapter 8, he's talking about this egg reappearing from basically in the Book of the Law, and then every 7 cycles of 7 years, basically. And then in Ma Ion, the next chapter, he talks about Frater Achad discovering this whole formula of the egg being 107. And that's when I realized, holy shit, this is the 107th year. And from there, all this synchronicity just fucking exploded. And that's why I had to create the blog as sort of documentation. And ever since then, it's just been downloads of information. And these facts are synchronicities, ordinarily inexplicable but perfectly logical in a context of an ongoing magical perichoresis involving Crowley, Jones, Lovecraft, and the present synthesizer of these elements. Yog-Sothoth is the zenith of which Cthulhu is the nadir. As solstitial points, they are balanced by their equinoctial counterparts east and west, represented in the Necronomicon cycle as Hastur and Shub-Niggurath. The full complex formulates the Great Cross, which typifies the crossing over from matter to spirit. This is represented on the Tree of Life by Thoth and by Death in the voodoo imagery of Bear and Samedi. Again, Samadhi or Samadhi, which in Sanskrit signifies together with the Lord. Or also, Nirvana means blowing out, and then the blowing out is 666. Again, just that unity. But the voodoo Samadhi is Lord of the Crossroads is one of the Carrefour or Carfax, car stairs, the stairs being the way up to spirit or down to matter. And again, the staircase is 999, which is kind of symbolic of a staircase, and Freud even mentions the staircase as basically the sexual energy or a symbol of it, especially in dreams, in the interpretation of dreams. There's a chapter on the staircase. And then again, Masonic symbolism is replete with the whole staircase symbolism too. So again, the 9 arches, the nine all of it's just like connected once again. The Kundalini basically is what it's symbolic of, and again, the Kundalini is that thread or that string. The 4 letters of the word of the Eon, the word given in Liber 418, which Crowley supposed to be false, are Ma-Ka-Sha-Na, or Ma-Ka-Shana. Ma is Mayat, whose element air symbolizes space. Ka is Kali, whose element water symbolizes blood, I guess time. Sha is Shiva or Set, whose element fire symbolizes spirit. Na is Nigurath, whose element earth symbolizes matter. The word Makashana thus resumes the formula of space, time, spirit, and matter. The word Cthulhu, which Crowley forbears to translate in one place and in another renders as who will shall attain, contains the keys to space, time, spirit, and matter. The twin T's represent the double current, the taus of the double-wanded one. The twin taus are explicit in the designation AA, 2 1s or 11. The 3 vows as Ayin represent the Kabbalistic OOO or Ein Sof Or, the mathematic cube root of 0, algebraically glyphed as 3 in the square root of 0. In Liber Trigrammaton, see Magical and Philosophical Commentaries of the Book of the Law, pages 219 through 223, the concept is expressed as nothing under its 3 forms. The value of OOO or Ayin is 210. It is the formula of absorption into the void, the reduction basically. Its reflex 012 is the formula of manifestation, which is funny because the word manifestation in Hebrew applied to English is 321, which looks like a reduction, but really it's 1, 20, 300, so it's an expansion. The apparent and material projection of consciousness by the mechanism of duality. Crowley pointed out in Liber 52 that zero, or zro, an Atlantean word meaning semen, is the magical essence of matter. It was used, some say abused, by the sorcerers of Atlantis. The remaining letter of Cthulhu, L, designates Mayat or matter, whose eon is adumbrated in Liber L, or Liber AL, which, again, Frater Achad added the key of 1, being the 1. The Book of the Law, Liber AL, was originally entitled Liber L. See the Equinox, Volume 1, Number 7, page 386. Crowley admitted to not having heard correctly certain words during the transmission of Liber L, and it is probable that he misheard the word Cthulhu. It may have been Cthulhu with a K, in which case it would be identical phonetically but not Kabbalistically with Cthulhu. The Schlangenkraft recension of the Necronomicon, Introduction, page 19, suggests a relationship between Cthulhu and Kutha, or Kutu, the Sumerian underworld ocean. Thus, Cthulhu or Cthulhu, Lovecraft's Cthulhu Sumerianized, would mean the man of Kutu, the man of the underworld, Satan or Shaitan, as he is known to the Yazidis, whom Crowley considered to be remnants of the Sumerian tradition. Note the reference to the Yazidis whose power zone on the Tree of Life is assumed to Yasad, the foundation or seat. The number of Yasad is the number of Za, the name of the ether containing the word Cthulhu. The number 9 relates to the moon of the tarot. It contains the symbolism of the twin pylons, Cthulhu, and the zootypes of the backward way. Remember, the backward way is 333. The jackal or hyena, which is Set, Shugal or whatever, and Karanzan, and the gatekeeper. Both the lunar and Bethilic languages in which is written, according to Crowley, the litany containing Cthulhu, are connected with the moon and with the sea, the abode of Cthulhu. Bethilic is a language of the Deep Ones. It is related to the lunar language, as is Chinese to Japanese. The characters are common to both, but their interpretations differ. The sirens and nymphs denote the elements concerned. They are related to the moon, Atu 18, via the path which, in its Tertullian reflex, becomes the tunnel of Kuli Elfi, or the tunnel of Q, basically, Kaf. See the Night Side of Eden, chapter 19, part 2. Za, or Zaa, suggests a connection with the Eon of Zain, or Zayin, and with the serpent, which, combined with the AA, further suggests the star and the snake. Whatever the interpretation of Cthulhu or Cthulhu, there can be little doubt that Cthulhu surfaced in the Eon of Za and was heard by Crowley 2 decades before Lovecraft wrote in 1926 The Call of Cthulhu, which was not published until 1928. These considerations do not preclude the possibility of earlier published records of this name, but they do affirm the objectivity of the concept and its independence of Lovecraft's initial subjective range. The most significant numbers connected with the name are 77 and 66. The formula is the name of Oz, the title of Crowley's New Manifesto of the OTO, which related to the rights of man, and by implication to the rights of manifestation, for man is the manifestation of Nuit in the Ma-Ion, the ends of manifestation. See Achad's official and unofficial correspondence for an elaboration of this thesis. 66, on the other hand, denotes the world of shells, habitat of the deep ones. Oz comprises Ain and Zain, the eye and the snake, or the eye and the sword, really. But the sword and the snake, again, they're symbolic and are connected in a lot of ways. Cthulhu is represented in the Lovecraft mythos as a sea monster with a single eye winking balefully from a mask terminating in 8 writhing tentacles. The tentacles typify the holding power, the hold, hand, or womb of the mother force, Shakti, in the waters of the deep. Cthulhu's house, or hold, in Rilya. And then again, remember Rilya, well, I can't say remember because I haven't mentioned it yet, but RYLEH is 250, and then Dream 250. And again, there's all these calculations if you just subtract it and look at the correspondences. And again, these are like fictional things, but yet again they overlap. So this is what he's talking about, how I don't know, the whole Cthulhu thing, I'm just like diving right into it. I didn't really see, what the big deal was about Cthulhu. Now, obviously, it's got a whole cult of people who don't even know anything about Kenneth Grant or anything like that. But Cthulhu is, again, it's symbolic for a lot of reasons. You'd have to read this whole book really to see. I'm just assuming, people know something about it, but Cthulhu is very symbolic of like the subconscious, but it also connects to the Kundalini, and then again also whatever this whole great alien or just the aliens. And there's a lot I didn't mention when I was rewatching the video I mentioned yesterday, and like, because 333 is also the tall white race. Oops. With a Gimel. And this CG thing, the Gimel, Cheth 3 and 5, I think that's, again, just a veil or a blind you have to be aware of with the whole Hebrew and English. ABC, Aleph, Beth, Gimel, and then Cheth being CH in a lot of ways, or sometimes, again, just like Cthulhu, CTHULHU, could be 64, time, unless you take T as that, 455, but with a CH, which I think it would be more apt, CTHULHU, 69, and then therefore Cthulhu is really Baphomet, because Baphomet is, again, the alchemical connection between the solar and lunar, male and female, but also B-A-V, or F, but Vav, and then Vav as An, Baphomet, is also 69. And 69 is also what? Abzu, I think. Yeah, Absu, which is the abyss, and like Doth, and again, Doth is connected to Cthulhu. And then also 69 is that whole OTO sex magic formula, and because again, the mixture of the elixir or whatever. And I mentioned, or I brought up in the end of the last video, because it came up basically to my mind, and I was reading it. The fourth part of Leviathan by Thomas Hobbes is all about demonology and how it connects to politics, kind of. And basically, Leviathan is man as a whole, like Adam Kadmon. And so, again, the Kabbalistic idea of Adam Kadmon, which Adam Kadmon is 311. 311 being a lot of connected to this stuff, too. I mean, it's all it's one big giant spider web. And what else I forgot? The Black Widow, Latrodectus. The widow family or genus or whatever is Latrodectus, or Latrodictus, I don't know how to pronounce it, but is 402, which is Akbish, the Hebrew spider, and book Liber Akbish and all that. So, and then there's a lot of other 402 things, but anyway, I'm not going to get too far off track. You just have, again, you have to create a whole database, and that's the whole weaving, that whole spider web motif, mythology, whatever, modality. Did I look up 18? Yeah. The objects of attainment detailed in the Song of the Sirens' second ether are the sword, the balances or scales, and the crown. Zain means sword, Libra, whose letter is L, and the scales also suggest the squamous flesh of sea dwellers. The latter symbolizes Cthulhu enthroned on earth, or, more precisely, beneath the earth, for according to the Kabbalahs of Beskul, there are thrones underground. See outside the circles of time, initial quotation. And I had just mentioned the whole underground base 666 thing in the last post. Oz is a reflexive Za, or Zaa, and therefore a glyph of Yesod. Not only because its number is 9, but also because of its relation to the star of the AA, ZAA. Thus, identifying that star with the star of the Yazidi, which has its focus in the 9th power zone. Yazidi can be 31 or AL. This identifies the star of the AA with the star of the Yazidi denoted on the Tree of Life by the Sephirah Yesod. The interrelationship of the concepts Cthulhu, Cthulhu, Oz, Za, Yazid, Al, El, New Isis, etc. demonstrates unequivocally the essential identity of the Necronomicon 555, which Necronomicon in Greek is 555, which again connects with Petro, the Petro or dark rites basically of voodoo, which is also 55 or 555. But Petro is also stone, and again the stone is related to this whole mythos too. And the Therionic or 666 currents. Oz is the manifesto and manifestation of man are equated in the Necronomicon Gnosis. The power of man is the power of the Ancient Ones, and this is the covenant, which again is associated with the star or the pentagram, which is symbolic of man and Phi and all that. One of the numbers of man is 91, which is also that of Api or Api, the goddess who giveth protection in the form of hippopotamus. Wallace Budge's translation, page 421. A type of the sea monster. 91 being 2 less than 93 suggests that only by conjunction of both male and female is the Ophidian current transmitted. 2 Beth both. Another number of man, 741, is that of Amen, or Amen, the hidden god. And Manly P. Hall mentioned 741 in the Secret Teachings of All Ages as the number of Lucifer, which he's probably referring to that whole connection, man as the hidden god, or the god hidden in man. The concept man exists only in function of its opposite or reflex, unman, the non-human principle which is hidden or latent in the heart of man, and which is the source of manifestation. Every man and every woman is a star, Librael, chapter 1, verse 3, and see note 17. The rites of manifestation, for man is the manifestation of Nuit in the Ma'ayan, or the egg of time, space-time really, the XYZ. Such equivalence demonstrates the identity of the two currents. And again, identity, 107. And I just have to remember that episode that I was talking about, Mysterion Rises, with Cthulhu, which he's in all 3 of the Coon episodes, I believe, but there's also a scene where Cartman's in a airport, and the flight and the gate are 34 and 73, 107.
Passengers waiting for Flight 73 to New Orleans. We thank you for your patience, but the conditions in the Gulf are still delaying our departure. Unfortunately, we've just been informed that the Dark Lord Cthulhu has shat on the runway at the New Orleans airport, and will be delayed at least another hour.
Come on, people! Some of us need to get to New Orleans now!
Such equivalence demonstrates the identity of the two currents. Further proof of identity may be found in the nature of the great work, which comports the exaltation of the daughter to the throne of the mother, which is precisely the exaltation typified by Cthulhu's rising from the deep. And again, the daughter being the daughter formula, final hey, 107, and this whole idea of basically that hidden dimension or direction opening up in some way, giving birth to a new eon, is what I think of basically in all this. The succession of the eons is implicit in the symbolism of Maat, whose lip is the liquid El, Hulu, emerging from or projected by Set or Set-Hulu, a phonetic variation of Cthulhu. In this way alone may the mystic number of the Tlephoth, 66, which again is 1 through 11, be reconciled with the great work, for the world of shells typifies the dead, the forces of darkness, Nox, outside the light of consciousness, Lux, which hath ultimately to be integrated with the consciousness of humanity. The word human or uman signifies of woman born. In order to initiate the eon of Maat as adumbrated in Librael. So he's saying basically we need to contact whatever these forces are to fully inaugurate basically the eon of Maat. The process in that whole verse, Librael chapter 3 verse 34, kind of implies that whole thing with the fresh fever from the skies, the globed priest, and again the war engine is debatable. Some people think it's the computer. It could even just be the airplane, because 1904 was before the Wright brothers and airplanes and all that. I mean, this has all happened very, very fast. But Ra-Hoor Khawiit, it was under that chapter, and Ra-Hoor Khawiit is Horus, basically. So the flight is, it's symbolic, but again, it could be the atomic bomb, it can be the computer, it can be the airplane, it can be all of those things. The war engine. In order to initiate the eon of Maat as adumbrated in Librael, the process is implicit in the word Makashana, which is not, as Crowley supposed, another form of the word of the eon, but the magical formula of Cthulhu, or Cthulhu, the deep one. So and then he goes on to talk about Austin Spare and various other things. And each one of these chapters is good for its own reason. I like the Ma Diamaka one, this one. But again, this is all a lot to go to. It's a mouthful, it's an earful, it's a mindful. So I'm just going to jump to the wisdom of Silba, though I do need some water. My mouth's dry. And this book, it's hard to understand if you don't have understanding. And when I first got into Kenneth Grant's books, I was like, holy fuck. Like, actually, I would get sleepy reading one page. I had to take it a page at a time at first, and pretty much before bed. And it slowly got more and more, like I was able to withstand that sleepiness. I don't know what it is, because I've even tried, when I talk to people about this subject, they get tired. And then it's funny because the Ninth Arch, there's a verse that says, like, even a page is enough to send you beyond sleep. And I was like, holy fuck, there must be some, like, energetic quality. I think it is. I mean, the higher mind and stuff, the supernals, even though they're slow moving, there's a sort of high energy, a high frequency to them that just, it takes getting used to, kind of. And I mean, I'm here at 2 a.m., and I've got to work in the morning. Well, not in the morning, the evening, but I think times like this, the nighttime when it's more like subtle and everyone's asleep and the energy is more still, or at least on this side of the planet, I think it's a little more apt for what Silba is about. The doctrine of self neither attained through the bliss of non-mobile becoming. And, like, I've read criticisms of this. They're like, basically it's doing nothing while, it's like thinking nothing while doing nothing. And in a way, Silba is voidness. But again, it's hard for the mind to get to the void, or even grasp the void, let alone maintain void, consciousness, sunyata. But eventually, like, that's because, again, that's really the Tao. Receive the Tao is 333. Receive the Tao. And again, Silba is 333. And this implies this whole interstices, or the in-betweenness things, the fractals. One, voidness is Silba. Aosic bel Aosic, in stance all perfect. The shadow of sleep, like a mist in the void, casts off images which are known as its dreaming. If a man has wealth on waking, he has not necessarily wealth in dreaming. The manifestation of power on a particular plane depends on the quality of awareness on that plane. The fusion of planes constitutes Silba, the perpetual bliss impossible of attainment, being ever in the process of becoming. 2. The becoming of Silba is beyond all conditions, being the eternal harmony existent between Silba and Eos. There is naught without Silba. Nothing exists. Nothing does not exist. Nothing alone is all that it can know, for in its selfhood is its knowing. Speculation about origins, creation, and similar fancies cannot concern Silba, for it ever was not. This which was not could not have developed thus, and if it will not be, that which it will not be also is not. For Silba, being finite, would be infinitely small, to an extreme non-existent. 3. To seek reason for Silba betrays fear of it. Silba is not. 4. It is that which is neither one thing nor another. It is all things and nothing. For all things include nothing, even as no thing excludes conception. 5. To pursue enquiries into realms wherein Silba moves is futile. Silba does not move. That alone moves which Silba sheds. 6. In a self-made vapor, Silba shines. In a web of words non-relative to Silba, flounders the self, unfound in swamps of delusion and in dread of not-self. 7. Not-self, which is non-existent, men have worshipped as God. This not-self concept arising from Silba unrevealed is the cause of restriction in activity as in passivity, which even so is merely apparent, for Silba remains untouched by the circumference of its circle. The circumference which does not exist for not-self is its center. 8. These considerations apply to Aosic sphere and moon circle. Man sees others. Their positions determine his progress, being phantoms cast from himself for the sake of observation, of memory, or for nothing at all. 9. Man loses self in this confusion. He beholds the forms, outcast, as possessing selves of their own. Herein lies his misery. The measure of his progress and the means of his satisfaction have been thrust against himself and endowed with will, the power of which is his own recoiling self-power. 10. Therefore, he who would abide in the purity of Silba must dissolve all forms in their source, which itself must be cleansed of objectivity and dissolved in Silba. 11. To neglect this purging is to live in delusion, prey to distortions of Silba magnified by fear. 12. The phantoms born of stagnancy and dread that men adore as gods have now assumed control, have drained their vital fires, even as a talisman pregnant with a mage's will stands mage itself and terrifies its maker. 13. Transference of self is all that has occurred, and yet how fatuous to lift up power from one point and to place it on another. 14. Learn to move by being still, to know by refusing knowledge of that which you desire to know. This is the art of Silba, motionless in vibrancy and wonder. 15. Silba is the consciousness in which thought arises. It is the substance of thought, and that in which thought moves, itself remaining ever still. 16. Silba is unrestricted, virgin, limitless and boundless, without purpose, lusting after no result, remaining ever perfect every moment of its non-becomingness. 17. The thoughts which you think I have already thought, for the self of which I speak is the self of which you think, constant co-heir of your becoming. 18. Let the word of thy will be the truth of the self. 19. The self of yourself, identical in essence to the self of myself, appears to differ in manifestation and emanation. 20. As water appears as oceans, lakes, rivers, pools, and fountains, yet at all times remains water, so Silba appears on earth as you, as me, he, she, it, yet remains forever I. 21. Earth has been invoked in water. Earth is the stability of your being. Air, the breath of spirit that steals from the light of Silba across the seas of your passion. 22. Know them all as one. Know them all as states, created for and by the self, for eternal joy in the contemplation of Silba on the summits of the mountains of immaculate solitude. 23. Know them finally as naught. 24. Why posit purpose for self? 25. That which is infinite can have no purpose, its very infinity fulfilling all possibilities. 26. He that seeks purpose knows not Silba, purposeless because eternal, eternal because unborn, immortal because undead, and forever inconceivable. 27. The universal joke has been announced. It is the name of a vision analogous to the realization of ultimate irrationality through the trance of sorrow which terminates in rapture. 28. Samadhi it may be, It is the realization by Silba of the self's non-relation to the shells of its fancy. 29. Self bears as much or as little relation to its conceptions as a child to its food. These conceptions are the means of its growth through stillness, its destruction through activity. 30. What fool would create a puppet of clay, imagine it spoke, and obey its commands? That fool alone who is unaware of Silba, who is immersed in duality, who is inured to folly. 31. Many teachers have arisen and will again arise within the universe. They have been, are, and will be misunderstood. They teach not that man should follow their ways, their light, their love, their liberty, their life, but his own way, his own light, his own love, his own liberty, his own life, which Silba alone to teach one grants. 32. The self of none I am. 33. Disintegration of form in madness is proof of your success, if the madness is known as not your own. 34. Let not the fragments obsess, penetrate yet deeper, and you will glimpse the jewel of Silba and come not back again. 35. This applies to waking states, the realms wherein the self in delusion and confused upheaval, amidst the excrement of personality, has erected the fantasy of systems. Madness relates only to these self-made restrictions. 36. Madness is a state of mind, so is death. Death is but an event in the waking state. No one can dream his own death. Who dreams it? Like death, madness is ever becoming, ever changing, elusive, ecstatic. There is no death, but there is release of mind from follies against Silba. 37. Deficiency of mind also has no bearing on Silba. Back of all, beyond conception, immaculate. 38. It has been wisely said, consciousness is a disease of mind. Phases of consciousness, more subtle in dreams, sometimes achieve non-consciousness, with fleeting dissolution into cosmic samadhi, into reality, encountering Silba in direct awareness. 39. Why should Silba endeavor to veil herself in a process of delusive progression? 40. In the explosion of bliss that ensues upon rapture, the self casts off phantoms imbued with its fervor. They objectify and are prone to obsess, but their rejection ensures continuity of bliss. These phantoms swiftly disperse, and in an eon, may be in a moment, or even in no time, the clothoth dissolve, as endless emanations are cast off by the self. 41. Turn not from bliss to contemplate these forms, for they are potent at the instant of their birth. Even more powerful do they appear in the void of exhaustion. New they appear, and seemingly alien, arrayed in the costumes of dream. 42. Insidious too are their brilliant reflections. Partaking finitely of the essence of Silba, they pretend to infinity, endlessly perfect. He who heeds these shadows of Silba goes in danger of obsession by the children of Isis. 43. So, poised in Silba, all embracing, let not the images obsess, for they are dead at the moment of conception, mere shells, reverberant shards of the shadow. 44. They are past, impossible of resurrection, forgotten, they have never existed. In the silence of darkness they are not. In the pleasure of Silba they never appeared. 45. Thus extricate self from the tangle of thought. 46. Think not, for there is but self to think and to think upon, yet no thought of self is possible. 47. All that you can ever imagine constitutes self, which has no image beyond Silba, and that is voidness. Chapter 2, verse 48. 1. In dealings with self on the plane of active manifestation, certain laws prevail. 49.2. Since Silba is infinite, eternal, and unmanifest at any time except in delusion, Concepts such as hope, faith, despair, motive are meaningless, being creations of self in the plane of existence. 53. Self manifests in waking life for no reason that falls within the range of human calculation. 51.4. Silba manifests because it is in the nature of itself to become that which is not, by a process of consciousness embracing alternative phases of sentience such as pleasure and pain. 52.5. In the levels of waking, the self performs with power. Applied to the level of sleep, this statement could have no meaning, since Silba is ever present and there is no place where she is not. 53.6. 53.6. From waking levels, her play unfolds. 54.7. To guard against the undermined, and minds unstable which hold one set of concepts false, another true, and yet another absolute, adhere to the following course. 55.8. 55.8. Abide alone in places of selfhood, even in cities remain alone. If worlds dissolve, see that they merge in you, for the rivers of their dissolution are a living light, which is the outer robe of Silba Bel Eosic. 56.9. Thus, profoundly sleeping in this light, select one image of Bel as a symbol of your force. 57.10. As Azaz has shown, the thumb is one such image. Concentrate upon it. 58.11. In the glint of moonlight on a thumbnail, the shades will mass, then refinement of shadow, and a lightening mist. Ultimately lost as those glorious ones, the eye will droop in sleep, the lid following with a hollow click, the lid of an empty coffin. For Osiris is without, and the children of Isis return. Herein indeed is a new sexuality, but he who has not Bel Eosic attained comprehends not. 60.13. In the full of the moon, beneath eaves of darkness, catch the gleam of light on the nail of the thumb. 61.14. The stars flicker and go out. The moon appears and vanishes. Like a crazy leaper on the backward paths, Silba alone abides. You are become the primal power of the new thumb-phallic splendor. 62.15. And your identity therewith is Bel Eosic perfect, shadowed forth in the form as the sigil of Silba. 63.16. These words flashed before me in the cavern of initiation. 64.17. In the transference of consciousness to the thumb of Bel, self reveals its primal power. 65.18. From the destruction of mind that gives birth to chaos, a zone of mauve is created, a desert of sand above the tunnels of Set. The winds hurry through them, a sinister piping bearing the beetle on its wings. 66.19. The thumb is force, the pipe of Pan, the phallus of Set, the heart of Eosic. It is all these and more, for these are shadows. It is the tube of Titan through which leaps the fire, the hair of Nuit through which shrieks the god, the flame that is Silba on the summit of annihilation, the wind that cools her mass in the temple of New Isis. 67.20. Dream not vaguely of nebulous heavens or hells, or births into God's state, or forgiveness of sins. Know the now and the fire of becoming, of the ecstasy eternal that flows from Silba when mind has been hurled to abysmal destruction. 68.21. Know the self that at all times can be not other than itself, that can know no state because it is wholeness, holiness, beauty. 69.22. The state, Bel Eosic, is primary, sexless. Man must seek inward and pierce the deep center, unveil the shrine of his desire, and rouse the vague specters of the backward darkness. 70.23. In his progress he has transcended many karmas. With wings he has believed himself endowed, as he was long eons since. He has wings now and horns. He shall have more if he invokes the backward darkness. This is known in Zaskia zone. 71:24. Let him embody his desire in symbol passionless, in a glyph suggesting a concept without evoking its form. Let him embody the ecstasy of self by thumb concentration until his mind is exhausted. 72:25. At this moment should the sigil be released, into the darkness of the unexpected should it be cast, into the outer darkness with dazzling swiftness in the act of departure. 73:26. Until he is lost in reverberant silence, he should not release it, for if there is no sound, the self will not stir. 74:27. Silence is the foundation of the work. 75:28. Not mere cessation of sound, but the outer silence born of new Isis that thrills in the darkness on power waves of Silba. 76:29. This silence is the base of the work. 77:30. From it arises a thin snake of light. It ascends the spine as an arrow. 78:31. In its swift consummation in the zone of Aosic, the sigil becomes. Fulfillment of desire ensues upon drinking the colors of Isis in the desert of Set at the time of the Hellbird. 79:32. Should the thumb wrench as a claw in a panic of frenzy, should the fire tongue leap from the teeth of darkness, abiding unmoved in pleasure or pain. 80:33. By this, oft repeated, achieve the exhaustion which enables the self to project its desire to the root of becoming, to the base of that which desires not. 81:34. Thus does self descend into Bel, uniting that which is impossible to that which has not yet occurred. 82:35. Thus does Aosic remain ever perfect, supposing a Bel that fulfills its becoming by means of its rapture, for delight is the seal of its perfection. 83:36. This wisdom of Silba contains the pattern of self in non-mobile becoming. 84:37. The hand in action controlled by the thumb in trance state all perfect has drawn these sigils. 85:38. Embodied therein are the karmas of self in reversion. 86:39. Silba is beyond definition, but she is not beyond expression in linear form. All art is her yantra. 87:40. On levels of action she appears as a system of sigils bereft of terrestrial significance, from a source impossible of location and ultimately irrational. 88:41. On levels of reason does the same apply, for reason establishes in waking state the impossibility of knowing Silba. She is therefore ever virgin. 89:42. Yet from Silba proceed these sigils, shed in the lightnings of her bliss. From this point does the line proceed as the wine of sex arises from the fountain of Hecate. 90:43. The thumb all-powerful plies the stroke, while within the perfumes of Silba announce the kalas of change. 91:44. The movement of the metabasis incarnates in the line as a deeply moving current in the wine. The silence culminating in ecstasy beyond manifests not, for form may not match its wonder. 92:45. Even as the line flows, purposeless, pure, so flows the word that its movement evokes, vibrating on the lips of the eye-mage within the temple of Bel. 93:46. Should that word at last explode a star, would fly the skies and fall ever earthward. 94:47. No more. 95:48. The very self attained, the bell splits asunder, and flares again the awful fire in elder eons. 96:49. Should the word burst forth, he that heard it would flame at the last in glory, a winged spout of fire engulfed in outer darkness. 97:50. He would not return again. 98:51. He would be not again. 99:52. Was he ever in the process of becoming? 153. Silba exists alone, and self exists not but to become that purity, purposeless and free, that is the fulfilling of itself in the realm of Aosic. 101:54. Go forth and know as you go that no one goes with you, for you are all, my holy shining one, all and none in Ilya Run Bel Aosic, whose abode is beyond the Mauve Zone. Chapter 3. 102:1. The self in progression is forever unmanifest, a series of not-selves and ceaseless becoming. 103:2. This self that is not self is Aosic Bel Silba, the state of before time that had no existence. 104:3. Dormant in bliss is this way, content in its notness in timeless perfection. 105:4. This is state primal, the plane of Aosic wherefrom that old one flies forward to no thing, each flight a self, each way a return, never there but always here. 106:5. Concentrate awareness at the root of the thumb. Swiftly streams the force along the shaft of will. Falter not. Hold fast until in the mauve mist the whirling knots pulsate. 107:6. This chaos vanishes, the mist alone remains, and a differenceless crimson ocean from which uprears the tower of Koth. 108:7. Silent sentinel against the vortex of negation. 109:8. Massing in the tower are the specters of awareness. Removed is the self from the seat of its function, yet it has not moved, albeit you have fused with that is not thou. 110:9. Yet is it I as much as thou. 111:10. At this moment of meditation the mind breaks open. 112:11. The tower crumbles, its dust falls like brittle beetles, silkily into the abyss, falling, falling, falling. 113:12. Man has so fallen. 114:13. Bel Aosic moves, Aosic moves not. 115:14. Withdraw slowly awareness from the symbol of power. 116:15. Subtly, stealthily, bridge the parapet of spiderweb spanning the night-black gulf. 117:16. Strange masks float dankly about you, glowing in death's magnetic sleep. 118:17. Identify not, remain immaculate, the pageant will pass. 119:18. Mistake not the masks, one or another, one for another, for they are your death masks. Yet are they faceless like the god with black paws. 120:19. This is the moment of precipitous obsession. Hold firmly the shaft of extended will, so that desire blossoms not in belief as counseled by Zos. 121:20. This meditation has no purpose beyond awareness of Silba in the state of Bel Aos. 122:21. For in Aosic it is ever known. In Bel Aosic it is known only when particles of self emerge in isolated specters. 123:22. Then is destroyed the concept dualistic, in shattering lightnings the point of night expire. One star remains, one truth only. Naught remains, yourself that point dissolves. Yet are you still. 124:23. 125:24. The self alone abides unmoving. It absorbs not, it emanates not. For naught in it abides not but to become the impossible. 126:25. As to wakeful workings, sexuality has made you crave the impossible, for you craved that which you were not. Would you attain to the silence of Silba? 128:27. Observe and be still. 129:28. Self implies not self. Man implies not man. Not man appears as woman, as male implies female. Sex embraces these concepts, all as Zos has shown. 130:29. Androgen is concept perfect, obtaining wholeness in all states because it resolves the illusion of duality. 131:30. But the androgen in Silba zone is not perfect and implies the not man is the shadow from outside. Woman embraces it, thus is she the gateway. 132:31. Between the stars she achieves Ilyarun Beleosic, beyond sex, beyond mind, beyond the clouds of terrestrial consciousness. 133:32. Reason, too, is false, being but the base of the terrestrial triangle. 134:33. Beleos has the hand, the thumb, the eye, and the mouth. The phallus is concealed in the point of light, the center of a circle swirled in night eternal, the heart of a dark star invisible from earth. 135:34. Yoni is embodied in symbols stellar splendid, a star built inwards, rotating on its molten core it grips the yod and feeds the vampire flame. 136:35. A state of neither is born. The child knows not itself, for it is ever coming. 137:36. It attains awareness in the process of becoming the not human that cannot speak its name. 138:37. The liberated force is irreversible and impossible of reabsorption into that which sent it forth. 140:39. It is the first and last whirling before the coming of lamb's egg. 141:40. The soundless hum, the cry of the whippoorwill. The egg circulates in space. The ring passed not, beyond which vision fails. 142:41. Beyond the rim of that vision the children of Isis revolve. 143:42. No woman is needed for this attainment if woman is understood. 144:43. She is an entrance to the outer places, and their outrance. 145:44. From the egg bursts forth a cry, not the cry of any known ether, and a spiral call. 146:45. It echoes in the voids of Vith and secretes a meticulous globule. 147:46. Which flowers into a myriad globes, the bubbles that chatter in the sigil of the master. 148:47. This conception arises from the friction of movement created by Silba in her brilliance immobile, and within the self the egg seethes. 149:48. Until there emerges an insect whose drone is known, the master once shaped it for meditation. 150:49. From the base mound of the thumb, from its twin globules and upspurging spirals flows Beleos. 151:50. But desire not consummation, for in desiring an object man becomes it. Man can have no image of this attainment. 152:51. Undisturbed by desire, rejecting desire, perceive that which desire conceals. Perceive the self cut sheer from conception. 153:52. All is the word and the self is not. 154:53. In the still silence, know that to know the self is to know all and nothing, for the self is neither, and beyond them both, and non-mobile becoming. Chapter 4. 155:1. It has been decreed, let the temple be cleansed, let the false gods be cast out. 156:2. All gods, being conceptions of self, are true. They come to life in moments of exhaustion. 157:3. But times arrive when temples crumble, idols fall, and I alone remain. 158:4. The dust of the old ones shall dance again. In the writhing wind, brilliant with space-frozen flame, the formless again will form. The sleeping again shall awaken. 159:5. You will sleep. 166. On the column of flame will you be borne to the Titanic island. 161:7. Amidst storm, skywreck, snowfoam, and sea blood. 162:8. You will unite the gold and the mauve. The llama will leave his throne, the thumb will tremble, and the eye spout fire. 163:9. But lessen not the flight. Be gloriously lost. 164:10. You are becoming. 165:11. This is the hour. 166:12. The double power. 167:13. Invoke now by the sign of Aosic. 168:14. Destroy not, neither create. Within the night mind alone desire attains Aosic. 169:15. Realize that self is all, and worship all. For by robing self in diversity, pleasure is achieved in a love beyond compare. 170:16. Desire not, and all will be yours. Desire for either implies non-attainment of the vision of Silva. 171:17. To become is all that you can ever do. 172:18. Set each idea against its opposite, and in their abolition know reason as confusion by the nature of its being. 173:19. It is because balanced. Its balance is maintained by ideas antagonistic, conceptions ever rising from the causes of their conflict. 174:20. Disintegration of form in madness is the victory achieved by the ravens of dispersion. 175:21. Pierce yet deeper until the very walls of mind crumble and fall. 176:22. Within that gulf Silva pleasures alone and inviolate. 177:23. You cannot but become. 178:24. To remain at one with the source of thought, assume not the masks. This is the first step. It is also the last. 179:25. Aosic attained through non-mobile becoming yields the knowledge of impossibility and the key to the sphere of non-necessity, the realization of pleasure and explosion of self, as Black Eagle instructed the Zos in the book of that name. 180:26. Your powers are incalculably vaster than anything imagined. You have imagined Silva, for Silva cannot be known. 181:27. Thumb, eye, mouth, hand. These are the magical keys, and the mystical mode of opening the gateway is formulated by Zos in a secret glyph guarded by the shade of a water witch. 182:28. Open the gate and call to the wind. The backward darkness will respond. 183:29. The call breeds a slime like a luminous fungus that will adhere to the gateway. A curious insect will hover and attract by its buzzing more of its kind. They are simulacra of the beetles known, yet unknown, to the master and to the lama. 184:30. Strive not to net them. They are outposts of Qliphoth breed, forerunners of the children of Isis. 185:31. They spin strange threads like the spiders of Beskul, but they are not spiders, and the lines they trace have no affinity with the vevers or veves of the violent ones, who feed upon flesh and know not the subtleties of Silba. 186:32. The lines lead below, as it is written, there are thrones underground, and the monarchs upon them reign over space and beyond. Invoke them in darkness, outside the circles of time. In silence, in sleep, in conjurations of chaos, the deep will respond. 187:33. As the eye bleeds its tears, the mouth its blood, so also the egg of lamb in slime encased releases the lugs. 188:34. These specters are harmless, but their blood is devastating. Imbibe it slowly before its luminosity altogether dims. 189:35. They are the stealers of your force within the waking world. They cannot dream. 190:36. Turn within. Let not the blood emerge, but constrain the thumb until the night of Isis falls. 191:37. Uncertain is all else. Obsession lurks without. 192:38. Within, all is calm, for all has been surpassed. Is not, is the residue of bliss upon the parapet of Vith. 193:39. Now assume pose Beleosic, symbolizing Silba, the state of becoming resulting from awareness. 194:40. The clenched claw upon the head, the left claw at the place of power, thumb erect. 195:41. This is the posture supreme, the posture of self in the bliss of becoming. 196:42. Let a minute pass, another. Soon, if rightly flexed, muscles bound, head back pressed, pulse athrob, exhaustion supervenes, the earth your bed, the sky your dreams. 197:43. In magical sleep proceed with caution. Aosic alone must be within you. His sigil glows like the pyramid of Vith. 198:44. Sink in the great within, where the deep ones dream in seaweed-tangled sleep. 199:45. A circle of light revolves about you. It is the circle in the sigil of Aosic, pregnant with the brood of Isis. 246. Observe the lengthening tower leaning away from the gulf. They are the I and the O separating in objectivity. 201:47. Aosic S's hissing, Exacxar. 202:48. Now the moon appears, new, an argent sickle. 203:49. Beyond its curve lies no thing, annihilation, absorption in the light of Illyron. 204:50. This sigil is remembered in the bliss of non-mobile becoming. 205:51. It flashes from darkness to darkness, the darkness that is undying, that is more brilliant than raw Thek. 206:52. This sigil seals the outer sphere of Mauve, known only in the secret love of Silba. 207.53, IBA, or He Shall Come. Then there's chapter 14, The Mystical Gnosis of Silba, where he kind of analyzes some of its terms and numbers. Same with this chapter, Kabbalahs of Silba 1 and 2. Yeah, that's quite a lot to think about. I've thought about it for a while. I've read it before, but rereading it, knowing a little more than I did when I first read it and got the book, I know what he's talking about as far as like the children of Isis and some of these things. The whole Silba thing makes me think of that Color of Time and that Salvador Dali picture with like the interstices again. And I don't know, it's just, and the whole meditating on the thumb thing is a big mystical thing going back to a lot of different traditions. And Uspensky talks about that too. So I'm wondering where Kenneth Grant got that idea. Could have been any number of things though, but yeah, basically the Cthulhu and this whole thing about the light beyond, and well, the shadow really beyond. I just wanted to read this because basically this is the backdrop for the spiral call, and it has everything to do basically again with the conscious and the subconscious mind and the stillness within, which is hard to achieve. It has everything to do with, I think, again, the teachings of Gurdjieff and Uspensky, and Maurice Nicole and a few others, but yeah, it's just, I threw in this little irony because it kind of relates. And yeah, that's this video. I'll read the Double Wand of Power next, and